President Galbraith,
Present.
Vice President Morgan,
Present.
Secretary Tyler, Member Tripp,
Present.
Board Member Miller,
Present.
Mayor LaForm.
Thank you. And then let's go ahead and approve the prioritized agenda.
Motion to approve the prioritized agenda.
Jeff
Second.
Morgan, go ahead.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so motion carries, and then go ahead. Doug.
Okay. All right, I don't know that we actually have to have a forum for a workshop session, but if we do, we've got one, so. All right, I'm gonna be very quick, and then I'll turn it over to the presenters. And I just want to say a couple of just brief things. Historically, Rio Rancho Public Schools has never been a district that went for the minimum in terms of our high school programs, and that was always very much intent. The goals have generally been to have enough flexibility within our units that students don't have to make choices that would take away from the experience that they have at the high school level. I can give you an example. If, you don't want kids choosing between marching band and being able to take a foreign language. Because you might be in the marching band and you think you're gonna go to school out of state, you have to have that foreign language. If you get too tight on your units, you lose that flexibility. I remember several years ago, one of our colleagues, whose background was extracurricular, but it was Sue Passell, and Sue said, she was extracurricular and elective teacher. And she said, well, the kids, not all of them come for academics every day. A lot of them come for the electives. And that's true. They come for athletics, or they come for band, or they come for other things that they have a personal interest in. We do have some kids that just love the academic piece. I don't want to say that we don't. We certainly do. But schools that have more elective choices for students have higher engagement rates and have higher completion rates than those that do just the bare minimum. The other, as we begin to look at CTE and other elective options, it becomes even more critical in my way of thinking. There's enough flexibility in the schedule that they don't have to make unnecessary choices, which would sometimes hurt areas that they really, their love is the marching band, but they have to give it up to be able to take something else that's required. So that's just always been kind of bad. The other is, I think historically, we've always wanted our students to walk out well prepared for college, university, or the world of work. And many of the extra things that we provide kids help get them ready for that. And without that, my concern is that we would see less engagement, lower completion rates, and a less satisfactory high school experience. So I'm going to turn it over to you all to kind of share what the options. You know that last year House Bill 171 was passed, and the two big emphasis was the two block to really emphasize the CTE, and the other was, for the first time in many years, you have flexibility with Algebra 2. And that was celebrated across the state of New Mexico, I think, in most school districts feeling Algebra 2 is really important. If your kid's going on to college, if you don't have Algebra 2, you may end up in remedial math at the university level, but it's not necessarily what every student has to have, and get a really good education to do what they might want to do following graduation.
Great, thank you. So I'm Renee Salcedo, Secondary School Improvement.
Stephanie Moore, Executive Director for Secondary Curriculum and Instruction.
Mariah Affentrager, Director of Council.
Because we knew we could possibly have some counseling questions. We're like, Mariah, please sit with us.
I'm sorry, Mariah, if I've been like looking over your
I'm
head.
No, not at all. So what we've given you a couple of handouts and a pencil, because I think that we've got this arranged so that we have everything that the PED requires, and then we'll be able to slide in the things that where we have choices. So if you look at your handouts in front of you, we've given you the state requirements and this is from, just straight from the presentation we did a couple of weeks ago. Our current requirements. And then a copy of House Bill 171, if you want it. So on what we've done, Stephanie's created a worksheet for you, which is basically this.
Because nothing like two old school high school teachers
Getting
getting a
together,
captive audience to,
Are you guys gonna grade our response?
Absolutely.
it's all about
Complete
feedback.
sentences.
Proper punctuation?
Yes, proper punctuation. So what we have up here is a student's 4-year high school career. The first credit that they earn is a half credit that they get in grade 8 for health. Now, kids can also take Algebra 1 or geometry and get a credit, and then that's going to affect down here. But we also ask that they take 4 years of math, so it just increases the level of math that they can get to.
So I think the first thing that we probably want to decide is how many credits do we want a student to have when they graduate from Rancho Public Schools?
They have to have 24.
Yeah, 24 is the bare minimum. Currently, we have required 26.
I was looking at not that we're APS. I was looking at APS and I was surprised because I thought they were the bare minimum. They actually require 25 is what I saw. So that made me feel like, okay, we're not going too crazy off,
Right.
as far as people can.
Right. And when a student does come in like mid-semester or mid-career, you can prorate that. So there's things that the registrar can do so that it's not impossible for a kid to get all of those credits.
26.
26?
I love 26. I think that that's a good choice.
I also like 26.
Sets us apart.
Okay. Okay, so what that's gonna tell us is that as we go through this, we have to have 26 required classes. Okay?
So ELA, we come with our health class, with the goal, right, is that our 8th graders are taking health to take care of that half credit. This happens for a number of reasons, but it's really important at the high school setting that the majority of our kiddos have resolved that. Part of it is a credentialing thing, like teacher credentialing component. I'm gonna talk about ELA through the track. So every year, a student is gonna take an ELA course, an English Language Arts course. I want to reassure you, it says 9, 10, 11, 12. We do have several pathway options for kids. We offer pre-AP 1 and 2. We offer AP Seminar and Research. We offer AP Lit and Lang. So there are options. While it looks like it's all the same, there are tiers and levels for the English class that comes through. All the way through.
So that's pretty straightforward. We don't have any, there's really no options there for us to choose. In math, here's one of our areas for, so we know we have to have 4 credits of math. Every kid that graduates has to have 4 credits of math. They have to have algebra, they have to have geometry. In the past, they've had to have algebra 2 and then a 4th year math. With the new legislation, they don't have to have algebra 2, but we have to offer it, which of course we would offer it. And of course, the counselors are going to encourage students to take algebra 2. So at this point, we have to decide, are we going to require algebra 2, or are we going to have it as kids can decide whether or not to take algebra 2?
And this is, for me, this is where I would rely on Mariah's opinion and
Yes.
experience
Yeah,
to say like,
perfect place.
yeah.
yeah, I mean, because we haven't been in that situation before. So I mean, how much of a workload is it gonna be for counselors to meet with their students to really make them understand the consequences of not having algebra 2, depending on what they wanna do way past probably what they need to receive. They think they can, but, so I mean, how doable is that, or how effective do you think that will be in? And I know that's asking me to look into a crystal ball.
Unlevel.
So I'm gonna speak as one person who was a high school counselor for more years probably than most people.
Absolutely.
ever. And I think I was a pretty effective high school counselor. We start every year talking with students about requirements to graduate from high school and then what they need to do based on what they think they'd like to do after high school. And we always recognize that those things ebb and flow for students. And I think Algebra 2, most students are going to be successful in Algebra 2, but I am going to say that there are a group of students who probably should not take Algebra 2. And I think you all might agree with me,
Yes.
but having every student in our district take Algebra 2, I think is burdensome on students, discouraging for some students, it felt
And
almost
teachers probably would too.
impossible.
Yeah.
And I'm not just talking about kids with IEPs, I'm talking about kids that just, the aptitude, it was a huge struggle. We would still support encouraging just about everybody to take Algebra 2, but when you have high school counselors that work with students, and if they do it for 4 years, like we always hope they do, they know their student population, and they pretty much know what they're capable of. And some students are not gonna be successful, and they haven't been, which has led to edgenuity courses that students didn't take honestly. We know a lot of kids got help in the ways that they shouldn't have because they had to credit recover so much Algebra 2. So I would like to see it
As an
as an option, highly encouraged, counselors counseling students and supporting them in that pathway where most of them are gonna take it, but there's gonna be a group of students who aren't going to take it, and they're gonna take another math option that hopefully will be challenging and will lead them where they need to be. And the option that if they reach a grade and they think, I think I want to go to this university, I didn't take Algebra 2 when I was a junior, well then your senior year, we're gonna get you. So there'll be an option all the way till the end, but that's just one director of counseling.
You want to take calculus, so it really needs to be a prereq.
Yes.
Do we have?
Absolutely, you're not gonna get to calculus if you don't take it.
Yeah, because you would, but so do we
Right.
have, we just need to make sure.
There's
that
in the program of studies that lays out the order of courses for whatever it is in math especially, in order to get to pre-AP calc or calc, you're gonna have to have those classes, those skill sets before. I think Mariah hits on a really good point that the majority of our kids are still going to be in Algebra 2. Right? The vast majority, that, I imagine that's still gonna be the default selection. What we're doing is allowing some flexibility for other students, for a handful of students.
There are still, if you're not necessarily going locally to school here, there are still a lot of colleges and universities that require Algebra 2 as a, it has to be on the transcript, or they don't admit students without it. The other, in a College of Education curriculum meeting a couple of years ago, Jerry and I attended, they said their experience is students who do not take Algebra 2, very high percentage of them end up in remedial math at college level. And I don't know if you want to address, because I don't know the answer to that anymore, how much of Algebra 2 is included in SAT and ACT. Like I heard most of it today is Algebra 1.
Algebra 1 and geometry typically is. There are some elements, but not things that couldn't be integrated or supported in the meantime, or in a 4th level math. That might be a transitions to Algebra 2 level course instead. We used to offer some like half-step classes for kids who weren't, which might be really great for that kid who is thinking about going, because it is too NCAA clearinghouse requirement, right? Kids who are trying to get through the clearinghouse for athletics or scholarships, that Algebra 2 is really important, but maybe they're not quite ready, then they could do that their senior year because we have a step class in the middle. But you don't have to make that decision right this minute, but that's the other part that we have to decide, yeah.
Could you tell me the percentage of students that do take Algebra 2 versus who don't? And
I would say
Right now,
probably
we're not
90%.
Everybody has to.
They have to.
Unless there's a special waiver in place.
scenario, I'm just curious.
I mean, I imagine that probably somewhere between 80 and 90% of our kids would still be in Algebra 2. Don't you guys think so?
Yeah.
I mean, I think.
And I'm just curious what the other options in math would be.
Yeah, so We offer a statistics class, we offer financial algebra, and, but we'll bring up financial literacy because there's several components of that to decide too, not just do we offer it or not. We offer transitions to college math, we offer, I said everyday stats. Financial algebra. I mean, we would probably have to bring in a transition, some sort of transition class. Because the other part, right, is that now they're gonna need 2 elective math classes if they don't take algebra 2. And we need to have 2 classes that they can access without algebra 2. So I think they could access, trig, we offer trig, and then a whole slew of pre-calc classes, or AP classes. They could probably access everyday stats without algebra 2. Right? They couldn't do AP stats, but they could do everyday.
Which stats would be really good, because if you're going into healthcare or anything like that, you can have
Yeah.
statistics class anyway, so for those sort of kids, that would be actually a really
Yeah.
good class.
Well, and I would just piggyback on that. I mean, not just healthcare, but just about every industry, you would need to know how to do stat. Even my industry, which is a lot of numbers. That's what I was, when you said stats, that's a very good call. Yeah. And then the financial.
Literacy, it's currently financial algebra, but we have 2 different versions of financial algebra that we currently offer across our high schools. One is tied to the C&M class, and one is a standalone year-long financial literacy course. That's a math class.
And we would like to, what we would like to do is make algebra 2 an option, but highly encouraged, and have that financial literacy class for students as one of the electives. And hopefully the algebra 2 kids, if they don't go on into a higher math, take financial literacy in their senior year, so that it's there for juniors and seniors, the financial literacy class.
But will colleges acknowledge the other alternatives?
Yes.
Okay.
Most universities, though, if you're going to a 4-year university, you need to take algebra 2. That's what's gonna be ingrained in them from the day they enter the high school.
So it's not an option.
But some of our kids don't go to a 4-year university right after high school.
I agree, statistics is another thing to really look at,
Yes.
because we have statistics class.
Yes.
How do our students do in that?
We have an AP statistics and everyday statistics.
Our
Kids seem to
students
do really well.
Pretty well in those classes.
They do well.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think that if this has changed here, not that we're like the pro of education in the world, but I would think that if that's happening in school districts, colleges are gonna start changing. I mean, we might not be there yet, but as far as the algebra 2, so.
Well, I think one of the things that says, right, by the state is it's more important for our kids to graduate high school and then have options to go to a 2-year college or a 4-year college and not graduate high school because we have an algebra 2 requirement. So as long as the messaging is highly encouraged and if not required, if you're planning to go to a 4-year college, you gotta take algebra 2, then I think we're still in good shape.
That's fine.
Okay.
But that's why I asked the question, will the colleges accept
Yeah.
the classes?
So we can leave this one.
Okay.
It depends on the college.
That is, yes.
It depends on the college. But most 2-year colleges are pretty flexible. And it's not a now or never, to your point.
Yeah.
The student gets there and decides later they want to go that direction, they can take that. That college math and it's not a fatal thing if you don't take it. There are options later.
All right, I want to say one more thing about math now, just from my background. If some students were able to take algebra 1, geometry, and then kiddos that are weaker in math had a kind of transitions to algebra 2, then in algebra 2 their senior year, that would be absolutely wonderful. Right now, our kiddos are pretty much told that you go algebra 1, geometry, and then algebra 2, whether you're ready or not.
Oh, okay.
And whether you've passed any algebra 1 or geometry prior to it.
Some of them haven't even credit recovered algebra 1, and they're taking algebra 2.
Okay, science. So the requirements are 3 sciences, 2 have to be a lab science. So right now we have earth space at 9, biology and chemistry at 10 and 11, and these are your lab sciences. We currently require a 4th science, but that's an extra requirement. So if you decided to keep the 4th science, that would fall under, there's 2 credits that the board can put on. And that would be one of the credits that you would add, would be of the 4th science. So do you want to keep the 4th science, or that would just turn into an elective spot?
Okay, science teacher.
It's trying really hard.
So if
Well, I mean,
things to
give
think
us the
about.
pros and cons.
Things to think about. I don't know if I can think of any. This is
The kids
all
don't want
for,
to take
this is
AP,
all for.
they're- yeah.
There, we have a lot of great science electives. When you start thinking about moving, like especially core classes that we currently have, we're going to disrupt the teachers in the school. So right now, each high school probably has 16 science teachers, 4 at each level. So when you talk about getting rid of a science class, a science requirement, we're gonna have to find something else for all of those teachers to teach. We have rich science electives because we've been doing this for a long time. So we have physics, we have anatomy and physiology, we have forensics. Yeah, Project Lead the Way.
I want
Lots.
to, this is also a key area where we meet a pathway requirement. Because Project Lead the Way runs into this, FFA runs into this, biomed, sport, like we have a lot of our pathways, sportsmen, that if we drop this requirement, we are running the potential of losing some of that program or pathway option for kids. Because they start it and they finish it here.
Decision made.
So I think what is important to understand then for us is that
That is one of the-
required science also falls into that credit electives, including the 2 units.
Correct.
They kill 2 birds
Yes.
with 1 stone
Yes.
with that science credit.
Correct. Okay. I don't want it to ever feel like we're just making the decision for you, but this was a really good decision.
By the way, how are, generally, to the point, how are our scores in science?
We have some of the state's highest scores in science, at the high school level across. We just pulled data because it's science instructional material review this year. So we were trying to make some big decisions around science last month and pulled data from Farmington, Hobbs, Las Cruces, Los Alamos, and us, and the only district that compared was Los Alamos, right? To performance and overall
Genetics.
science.
But if we lose that science,
Yeah.
we may not look like that.
Yeah.
Anymore.
We have really strong science scores, so.
Did you have a question, Gary?
Well,
Board member?
I have a real strong opinion, as you know. This is what I do for a living, but I will tell you that all my research, since they started doing NAP scores, since 1970 something, we've gone from number 1 in math and science to number 38 in math and number 24 in science in the world. And every decade, our math and science scores go down because all the European and Asian countries offer biology strands starting in 6th grade, chemistry, and physics. The United States was number 1 in 1966. Now we're 38th and 24th. So I think we don't have enough science and math. Yeah, that are hands-on.
And at
So
all of
that's
these
good.
levels, we do have AP classes. and-
Yes. We do have and we have more, I was learning about some of our science offerings this fall.
Yep.
We have quite a few elective AP science classes, right? You have your traditional AP Chem, AP Bio, but we do AP Physics, we do AP
Environmental
Environmental
science.
Science, we have
Psych.
we have quite a few other elective offerings at the AP level for that kiddo.
Okay, Stephanie, social studies.
So social studies, the state says we have to have 4. that's what we have currently. We'll talk about ninth grade in a second. World history, US history, and Gov and Econ are the identified courses by the state of New Mexico that you have to take. We also have other standards. We have the geography standards and the New Mexico history standards. The state is encouraging those to be placed in US and world history and do a social studies, I don't know, I guess an elective, right? So we need to decide if we're going to maintain our standalone New Mexico history and geography course. So I will fully acknowledge we are one of the few districts that require a geography half credit to graduate high school. Everybody was required to offer New Mexico, students had to have New Mexico history as a standalone half credit. So it made the schedule weird. Like in APS, when you look at social studies, during their senior year, there are 3 social studies classes they have to fit in because they don't take social studies as freshmen at some of their campuses. The US history standards are 45 pages long right now for high school US history, so I don't know where you integrate all of the New Mexico history standards or geography standards. We have a really successful, robust geography course in Rio Rancho that isn't your traditional physical geography, like place regional studies course. It is a global issues course, so they look at economics, the geography of economics, right? They look at migration patterns, and that takes that more human approach to geography, which is a great entry point into all of these other things across curricular in their success as their freshmen, that understanding of your place in the world and how the world interacts. So if we don't keep the standalone courses, we will have to develop social studies electives, which in general we don't have at either campus right now. I mean, we have a one-off, we'll have military history, or at Rio Rancho High School, they teach a elective on the Holocaust. Sociology, but those, we don't offer a lot of social studies elective currently. And there's good and bad in that, but it's a heavy, the standards, there are a lot of standards since the standard development, so concerns from both the ILs at both the campuses and administration about trying to push those standards and off on somebody else to be responsible for.
So the 2 comprehensives and CNI would like to keep the 2 ninth grade courses.
I love it, like, so, because I'm crazy and I've had my 4 children, so my 4th is going through it right in a short amount of time, so I get to hear a lot of what they're doing, and I think they do a really, really nice job. The other thing I like about it though is that it's our only freshman AP course that they can take.
Right.
And my kids have all done really, really well in their AP class and have received credit, like 4s and 5s is from all of my kids. So I don't know, I feel like it's a good thing for them to have, especially, I've looked through, last year I was kind of working with that history stuff, and I don't know how you would get all of that in there. And make the teachers were already struggling with all of the information that they had to put out, so.
Yeah, I've heard more this year from social studies teachers about feeling rushed in what they've had to do than I have ever heard in 25 years of teaching.
So would you like to keep New Mexico history and geography at grade 9?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you have a
Are you
question, Jessica?
opposition?
No, I was just gonna say, the counselors must do a great job of encouraging those 8th graders to sign up for AP geography.
Yeah,
That was a combination of C and I and how.
We go to
That's
8th grade campuses and Will might cart in with all
Yeah,
my
both of
kids.
them, also like both of my kids did it, but I think that it does, I mean, what I like about that is that it does a couple things. I was just thinking about that as you guys were talking through it, because I think it gives the kids confidence to say like, I can do AP. Like, I started off as a 9th grader, and not only did I take care of this requirement, but it's doable.
Yeah.
And so hopefully, it didn't for my kids, but hopefully it encourages them to then keep taking additional AP courses. But I think, so I like the way it's structured, and to me, it's like, if it's not broken,
It's a good class.
No.
It is a great entry point.
Just as an, I thought the class would be nice, because you get a lot of people that move here that are not from here.
Right.
Yeah.
And man, it's nice to know about the state's history. It really is. So I'm really in favor of that, I really am.
It's, and the human geography course, like if kids are in the year-long course, there's, for AP Human, there's embedded in every point of that, how this ties and how you see that geography out here in your windows, like right here in this community, every component of it can be, you can look at the macro of it, but you can look at the micro of it right here. It's,
As
I
far as,
think it also, oh, go ahead.
well, I was just thinking, as far as our kids, just because you brought up people moving, and so I know that this is a hard thing though, as kids move in. Is there a way to help that to be an easier transition? So if they come here their junior year and then they need New Mexico
I was just
history.
asking Renee that. We've always waived the geography for those students because it wasn't a state
Which is
requirement.
good.
But we couldn't waive the New Mexico history because it was a state
Good.
requirement. But now that,
Yeah, now it's not a
Now
state
it's not a
requirement,
state
so we
requirement.
probably would not.
it's not a standalone. But both campuses do make space for those kids to take the course. So, like, at Cleveland, those, if we had a transfer kid come in, we would plug them into any open section. At Rio, they identify a section for transfer students so that they're, like, if they're 17 or 18, they're not in class with ninth graders.
Yeah.
So,
And
that's.
honestly, if it was waived, it's such a wonderful.
Yeah.
So,
I think one of the other things it does really well, and typically we talk about world cultures all the way through, and little kids or middle school, it's not like we only talk about where we are. But I think in high school, when you get that, the geography course really does begin to help students visualize the larger world. What's out there, like, how it's different than maybe what we see and experience here. We're kind of insular here sometimes, that's not necessarily a bad thing. But I think it really begins to open that window, kids in a different way, than perhaps some of our other courses. And I know for my own kids, I found that to be really helpful in kind of waking up to things beyond what we experience every day here.
so that gets us through our course, so that's 4 times 4, that's 16. So this leaves us right now with 10 credits to decide about.
Kids have to take PE, and then we're gonna fill out their ninth grade schedule with 2 electives.
Sorry, I forgot our health and our PE. So the state also says we have to have 5.5 elective, right?
And
take help too.
I
because
did. That's
You want to know
Oh,
PE?
PE is a full
Yeah,
credit.
it's a full credit.
You just wanna use up the whole.
I do.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's really important in my house, so I get all sorts of trouble for forgetting that one.
So the state requires 5.5 elective credits. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4,
One more up.
5.5. So that gets us through our 9th grade and 10th grade year. So some current requirements, a half fine arts and a half tech credit.
Get rid of the tech.
I'm hearing toss the tech credit.
So they are tech.
Yeah, they know so much more tech than we ever, yeah.
When that was put in, it was in a very different era, very different time. Trying to get kids comfortable with technology, and now it rules our lives. But I agree, I think they are pretty savvy about technology.
Right.
Too much so, maybe.
Yeah, misuse of technology.
We need a no technology class.
Right, so no technology.
Put in a cursive writing requirement. I'm just kidding.
How about a cursive?
I know, my kids
I
can't read
know.
their
They can't
grandmother's
even-
cards
yeah,
and birthday
They
cards.
don't write
They
cursive.
can't, I'm like, how
How
can
about
you not?
making that easy?
Our next workshop will be with Jana, and she will do that elementary.
You know, get tight.
And I am assuming that you want to keep the fine arts credit.
I'll make a real pitch for it, Dr. Schmidt, yeah, if he wants.
He was back.
There's hardly a board meeting, you don't see the results of that credit. There's hardly ever a board meeting, you don't see it.
Oh, yeah,
It
that's
is one of our strongest areas,
true.
and I think one of the wonderful things about it is you've got music, you've got art, you've got drama, you've got so many different ways that you can find an expression for fine arts for kids. Many of those are lifelong kinds of interests. And, all we know about learning in the brain and music and the discipline and structure that comes with that. And so I personally would hate to see it go away because I think we see the good results of that almost every board meeting.
Right.
So I don't know if you want to add anything to that, but I would sure hate to see it go away. And we find some kids who don't think they even have an interest in it. And lo and behold, they become pretty good thespians before they get on high school.
And without a tech credit, if you want to expand it to a full credit.
No. I'm sorry.
But I
This
am
is also a pathway component also, right? This is another area in which kids earn their pathway, which is that 2-part requirement in the grad student.
Could this be a difficulty for that pathway? Sorry. If some kids had to take that, but they were also, trying to do the other ones. Okay.
No, I think that we have there's plenty of room in other electives to be able to catch those 2 electives.
But
If they
you
weren't
also
fine arts.
remember that there's also kids that the thespian, the music, and the art, and so we've always had like intro to photography and kind of make sure there's still those fine arts classes that hit that group of kids.
Yeah, drawing,
Make sure that there's.
sculpture, like it's not just band, music, and drama, right? It's
Could we do, I don't know if we have, I'm just thinking of, arts is what I did in school. I did theater and I did photography and that was my place and I took art too, but, my own kids, they're very science heavy, so they actually really struggle to pull in. And my son did photography, my older one. My other one's I think he's gonna probably take photography too. I'm just thinking, I don't know, like art history, I don't know.
we have our history
So
class.
would that count in their fine arts? Cause
Actually,
Cause that-
history class.
Cause in, like in college, I think you can take, a history of whatever and it does count as part of your fine arts. I'm just thinking for some of those kids who are like,
Yeah,
really don't
Now
know.
there's always a little handful of kids at the end, that were struggling to meet those credits.
Yeah. I don't know, could you make that a dual, like your art history where it covers your fine arts as well as your.
Well, there's music theory too.
Yeah, which would be good too in music theater, because in college.
If I can, from my
it's a lot.
perspective, the purpose of the fine arts credit is for hands-on
Yeah.
art creating. Art history
It's
is more of a
history.
history class, and so it doesn't get kids creating,
Okay.
making works of art. Music theory does because they're doing some composing on top of it, so that's why I'm thinking.
Music
That
theory is
class
just
would
one
cover
because
those
it came
kids
up.
that you're talking about, yeah.
Is there an intro to a graphic art? One of
Yes,
those?
there is at
Oh, is
Cleveland.
it? We should.
There's not an intro to graphic art, but it's covered in intro to visual arts,
Intro,
and then they
okay,
branch off into graphic.
into graphic art. if they like.
Those are just thoughts, I know
No,
that
it's-
those words would ever come out of my mouth, but I was
Yeah,
just.
no, there's always like a little handful of kids, because that's not that wasn't my thing.
It's probably why the half credit is
Yeah.
the more reasonable
Yeah.
component of it, because you can take a semester of intro to. I mean, I waited to take my art class till I was graduating college. The semester I graduated college, I took art.
Well, sometimes it's good to stretch,
Yeah.
when you're not comfortable.
Yeah.
Especially if things go really easy for you in one area, sometimes it's kind of good to just to stretch and.
We really
And
encourage
grow a little
students
bit
to
in
take
that area.
classes they don't feel thrilled about as a freshman and finish them, and then some of them think, oh, wait, I'm not.
I love it.
I want to
Yeah.
get going.
Well, and my son loved his photography class, which I'm glad, because I love photography, so. My daughter loved her theater classes and went into theater in the end, so that was good. So.
This gets us to 23.
Did you get the fine arts?
Yeah, we did.
Let me count again. No, I did not, because I'm
Yeah,
forgetting this
it's
health
okay.
credit.
So 7, 14, right, 15, 19 and a half. 23 and a half. So the requirements, right now, everything else is just filled out with electives currently. And those electives would fulfill the pathways, so they have to have 2 credits of pathways. And Stephanie did some work. I know that when we presented, you had asked, how difficult we thought those pathways would be to fulfill.
Yeah, so I went through, just the master schedule, and this is, right, not precise, but it is fairly close. And, any course that we had that was a level 2, 3, or 4 in their enrollments, trying to total those up. So I looked at world languages, culinary arts, anything in the computer vein, FFA, art, drama, band, choir, orchestra, ROTC, associated students, DECA, sports, like all of them that I could have, and AP. And this accounted for about 2,500 students at each school. Now, I can't tell you that they're unique students because I didn't look up every student. I just looked at course enrollment to get these numbers. So it appears to be a reasonable thing, and like we're not going to have to put a lot of steps in place. It's now a matter of tracking it, because we're sitting at about 2,700 students at each high school. We wouldn't expect a single freshman to be in any of these leveled courses because they're in intro courses as freshmen. So we should be in pretty good shape, just as is with pathway options for kids.
How do you see this, just the recent conversations going on, but it looks like it may become a reality, that if you don't have a full load in the 12th grade, they're going to start seriously penalizing school districts financially. How do you see that within the scope of all of this? Because if they go that direction, you need that full load in order to be able to pay for the teachers we have now. So to me, it's just what do we do with that? And it would seem like certainly the career pathways are part of that, but also any kind of advanced placement or dual enrollment, or probably going to be ways that we can fill that senior year. But it may look very different for seniors in the future. They're not going to be seniors getting out at 1 o'clock or at 11 o'clock. Or we're going to have to take the financial hit, and it is substantial. So that's another thing kind of keep in everybody's mind, that's, we hear that's probably coming.
So, in order to hit the 26, right, we have to fill this, and half of this one, right? So we've identified 1.5 credits that you guys are setting. That is the elective science and the half of fine arts. So our recommendation for the other half would be an elective credit, right? In hopes that we're building that pathway option. So then the question is, do you want to at all mandate what these classes look like, or do you want to leave them open as electives?
I think leave them open as electives, especially for those students who are in like sports and or, band, other fine arts that they want to be able to take those additional classes. I feel like they need that leeway to be able to take what they want to take and what they need to take.
Yeah.
That's been my experience watching my kids as being young.
And my
And
kids.
then, like you said, Stephanie, then it also fulfills those pathways.
And it gives them, an area to take languages, sports fit. Every requirement that you take takes away an elective from a kid. And so, just like Dr. Cleveland said earlier, kids usually come for the electives. And so, in my opinion, and I think everybody up here, the more electives that we can have, the richer the experience for the student.
And we know we're offering them a good foundation, right? We're requiring 4 core all 4 years. So they're getting a solid academic foundation in those core things. And, I mean, we could look at requiring language. Right, because that too is another one of those university things. However, my caution there is that we currently are having a staffing issue around language. Yeah,
Can't find Spanish.
we can't find Spanish teachers. Really. So the more flexibility we have, the kids have, the more options they have on what they, I mean, I think they should definitely be required, right? We need to require every bit of it, but if they get voice and choice in that, then hopefully, right, ideally you get better outcomes for students.
So I
Because
saw
they're making a choice.
Mr. Morgan give me a thumbs up to electives. Is that how everybody
That's
feels?
correct, yeah. Yeah.
Very, I see you thinking.
We're talking language.
Electives in
Yeah,
general,
yeah,
just
yeah.
like.
I think it's a thumbs up. I just would like to see the option of like that tech class being offered. And if it
Those-
doesn't make, it doesn't make, but to me, I still see during the pandemic where there's still a part of our community that was real hurting, so.
I don't
Those-
see any of those
classes
classes.
will all still
They'll still
exist.
be-
Yeah, I don't see those
Primarily
classes
because
being
they are
taken away.
part of a pathway too.
Yeah.
Right, they're part of pathway options, so I don't imagine we would.
Well, and my guess is a lot of those technology courses have changed over
Yeah.
time, right? So
Like
now there are things like
yearbooks.
Like
coding
AI
and use of
often.
AI and
Yeah.
things that are more relevant to things. Like,
Right.
it's not like
How to utilize
how to use a word.
How to type.
And do we know,
Should be like a-
I mean, and maybe it's none of my business, but do we know like things that we're thinking about as far as electives, like the UFO? And, MOU we stated, I don't know if that's gonna be an
Currently, that's not
UFO
on the,
research and writing, or, I don't
so
know.
that's not currently, in the works for a standalone course. It however,
It
has
may be.
entry points in a number of our courses, and he's been out and they've done some stuff already, yeah.
Usually the electives come from teachers' interest in writing up their curriculum, and then they send them to us. So if we do electives here and an elective here, then we've filled out the.
When it comes to the language, so I get we don't have a lot of teachers and stuff, but just like Algebra 2, that's a pretty big one where you're applying for colleges that they're looking for those languages. And so I just think we have to be really heavy on it.
So-
Yeah.
So that you're aware, we currently have, between the two high schools, 1,200 kids in a level 2 or higher language between them. I mean, we do have a high participation in language in our district.
And a lot of times we have to, we're capping those classes and, asking kids that want to take Spanish to put in, to go somewhere else because we physically don't have the space for the kids that
Yeah,
want
my
to take.
son had an online Spanish.
Sorry.
Several years ago.
Yeah,
But that's a huge shift
It
where
is.
we were in the school district in the beginning. We used to have 2 full-time Italian teachers, we had 2 full-time French teachers, we had 1
German.
German, and then we had 2 or 3 Spanish. And so that's just a change over time. And it's unfortunate, as we live in a very global society today, not to have that language. But if you're just interested in your personal health, what they're finding through research is anyone who's good in a second language, it decreases their chance of dementia. And if you speak 3 foreign languages, you're almost protected from it. That's what they're finding. And so, in terms of people's brain health and mental health, it is a good thing to do for yourself. But we are, I know it's very hard to find teachers at all in any of those areas anymore. A lot of our students turn to online courses when they need them. But to your point, we have to continue, I think, to remember that not all of our students go to college in New Mexico. And there are still lots of places in this country that require 2 years of foreign language to be admitted. So we continue to push, and it's good that I did not realize we had that many students, and so that's good. It's really
And
good.
that's 2, 3, 4, that's not including our level 1s, I didn't count any level 1 kids.
It's really
So
good.
there's a lot,
There's
like
a
that's
lot in
probably,
level 1.
yeah.
Probably another 400 or 500 kids at least between the two campuses in level one.
Okay, so congratulations, you figured out our graduation requirements for the incoming freshmen. Yay, good
Can I
job.
write on things? Can I write on a couple things? 'Cause I'm-
Yes, yes.
Okay, I'm
Yes.
still pushing that I think our algebra and our geometry both should count as math credits, even though they have to take math through, or just credits, actual credits. So right now they still just get the one, but if they're taking the same high school class that our high school kids are, they should still get the credit for it.
Actually, part of the legislation is that.
Good.
Exactly.
Okay, if they're taking, and especially because we're losing kids to charters, so this is great and well and everything like that, but if we're not gonna have students to teach because they don't like what we do, then that's not gonna do us any good. So I just think like that's a big deal to me. We have more electives in there now, because that was the other thing is those C&M courses, which is all come in as electives, so maybe that's more okay. But I think we still just need to make sure that we're looking at all of those things, and if we have kids who aren't wanting to, we need to be asking, what do we need from the community and really listening to, so we're not just losing students. Right. And that our schools, okay, one more thing, I'm gonna gripe one more.
Okay.
One more, because you guys know I'm trying to work with health at Rio Rancho. So that's the other thing with these, is that I feel like sometimes we put forth, like, this is what we're doing, but then the schools have different procedures. So like Rio Rancho, if you're gonna take a class that's not there, like my daughter taking health, right? They're gonna give her, I know they're gonna give her a hard time. They're gonna give her a hard time as she tries to put health into her thing and try not to take it as a health class and try to put her into health. Where I'm like, if we said BYU is fine and we said C&M courses are fine and they've taken health or taken a math class, then we need to be taking those in and not just saying, like, it's an elective. Like, it should come in as the class that they took.
So the BYU courses, because that's a high school, anything that comes off of a high school transcript comes in, like if she took health at BYU high school, then that comes in as a high school health credit.
Because they've been giving, I keep hearing from families, they're giving people troubles for it.
BYU is not a,
Are they taking it before they start high school?
I don't know. No, they're not. They're in high school. Someone asked to take a different language. So this was one recently. Someone asked to take a different language because we didn't offer the language they wanted to take, and they said they wouldn't take it. And I was like, why would they not take? So I like just those.
that
little
should have been
things, I think-
accepted as an elective.
Well, and I think we need to hear what the actual
Yeah.
conversation was.
And that's true, right? Because I'm getting it from a parent, so who knows? But we just need to make sure that this is this, and we are all on the same page. Because it's really crazy when I keep hearing from parents about different things like that with credits and difficulties they're having. So we need to make sure our counselors, we're not just coming up with how Rio Rancho is gonna do it and how Cleveland's doing it.
Well, and you're gonna have to make,
It's a
if
registrar.
you take
Yeah.
music, a dance class at C&M, is that gonna count as your fine arts elective in your high school? Like,
Yeah, in the past we've
in
not.
the past, we have not, and that has been written down, and that has
Yeah.
been.
So that
So if
needs
we're
to be-
opening that up, it's gonna have to be in writing so that the counselors can advise based on.
Yeah,
We've
because
not
I mean,
done that in the past to
That's-
protect those
Not
teachers.
To protect the high
To
school.
protect
we
the high school
offer-
teachers.
If we offer, the practice has been, correct me if I'm wrong, if we offered the course on our campuses, then we did not take the, outside class, like the dual credit class or C&M class, as anything but elective on our, like, we wouldn't let, in order for us to keep Spanish 1 teachers, we don't want kids going to C&M to take Spanish, we want them taking Spanish with us.
and not only that, it becomes a lot of tracking, it's a tracking
It's
nightmare
a-
for us to be able to.
So if we offered it,
That'd be on track.
So the hard thing, so you have like previous board members that brought this up too, because their kids had issues with that when they needed credits, so they took them during summer some C&M classes, and then and this has been allowed, but the schools would not take them. They would only take.
we have just redone our CPE and dual credits communication notes, so we,
Yeah, we still don't accept summer classes as, I mean, if a kid wasn't gonna graduate and have those, we might look at it, but like as a general rule, we don't accept those summer classes.
And I get why we don't, but once again, like, we're trying to keep teachers, but if we lose students, then it doesn't matter.
Right.
Because we're gonna lose the teachers.
Right.
So I just think we have to be kind of aggressive and think about it as a whole, because we wanna keep our teachers, but if we don't have students for them to teach, then we lose.
Right.
It is a hard balance, you really make and especially for our really motivated kids, you know, you don't wanna be discouraging our really motivated kids. But to your point, if you have 6 kids who are taking Mandarin Chinese here, and 6 of them are going over to CNM, we'll lose that teacher.
Yeah.
And then students won't have that opportunity to take that class here anymore. So
And that's
that's
just one
part
that
of
we
that too, it's not just, oh, we want to take care of teachers, it's we want to be able to offer those courses here with teachers so that students aren't forced to have to go find them somewhere else. But it's always a balance, and you're right, students are unhappy, then they, you know, we live in a world today when parents aren't happy, they just vote with their feet, they just leave.
Yeah.
And they take their kids somewhere else. So that's a balance for us too.
Yeah.
But I just want to be, emphasize it's not for selfishness necessarily. It's be able to have that teacher, hold on to that teacher,
And offer
be
the
able to
courses.
continue to offer that.
So the other issue, and I'm just bringing this up, and I don't teach right there, okay, but that release time seminary program is 100 kids who lose a credit every year, and it's really difficult for them. So that's where it's another issue where they're trying, not that they wouldn't, like, they're not gonna take the class necessarily at the school anyway, but they have to make up a requirement.
Right.
And so those ones are hard too, because they're like, I will just take this class, like, I have to make up the requirement. And then we make it really hard. So if they're taking though the BYU class, and it's not a CNM class.
The BYU classes are on high school
So we
They
will
transcripts.
just have to do a course agreement from, they have to just do it, but absolutely.
And that just needs to be made sure that it's understood, because I've heard.
It is,
from all
like
of
that's,
us.
and BYU is one of the, like, we have just very few, yeah, that we accept the because they give us a high school transcript. And so we have to take it because it's on a high
Because
school
that's what I'm gonna
transcript.
put, because I get a lot of words in my ear, so I'm gonna tell people that they have to take it if they take it. Okay. As long as
Well,
they
there's
take
a
it during high
so there's a process, right? They have to
Yeah.
have a contract and an agreement with the counselor in front of it.
Okay.
Right, not retro, in front of
In
it.
front of it, that goes through the registrar, and that clearly says, I'm taking this class off campus because I.
But will they say to them, well, we have, like, so for my daughter, we have help, so no, you're not gonna be able to take it, even though they would have known.
They should not, if it's from a high school.
Okay. These are all the issues, so I'm just trying to put it out there, yeah, it's okay.
And it is different because the BYU is they have a high school transcript as opposed to the, like, CNM, which is college.
Okay.
Those are,
Yeah.
those are 2 different sets of transcripts.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Thank you, I just had 4 or 5 years of things that people have
Sure.
something about that I had to get out.
Is Jill Ravelli still working with?
She
you?
is.
Yeah, she's fabulous.
She is, she's great.
I'll her to bring those to me.
Okay.
I think we got it.
Yeah,
All right.
thank you.
Any last questions or comments or second thoughts or?
Okay.
Thank you, was this helpful? I think, thank you for doing such a good job, I think you really made it out easy for everybody to follow.
You'd be a great high school teacher, you'd be a great high school student.